Back here on First Things First, Brandon Marshall will be joining us shortly. His internet went out, of all things, but we're trying to get him back up and running. In the meantime, Chris Broussard is with us. Broussard, let's talk some Sixers. They've got a bunch of decisions to make coming up here in the next couple of weeks. Another year, another season, not making it past the second round. For now, former head coach Brett Brown, a 12-14 playoff record. Now, former head coach, rather. So he was promptly let go yesterday after 7 seasons at the helm there in Philadelphia. So, Nick, let's start with you. The Sixers have problems. We know that all across the board. I'm wondering how much of those problems this year do you place on the shoulders of Brett Brown?
Well, listen, I think they were justified in firing him. And I think they needed a change. And Brett Brown has coached a couple playoff series against Brad Stevens and has been depantsed in both of them, to be totally honest. So that ain't great. And I know they didn't have Ben Simmons, but you can't get swept. So Brett Brown, no tears here for Brett Brown, as good of a man as he does appear to be. But the biggest fault does not lie with Brett Brown. In fact, I would put Brett Brown fourth in line of people I'm holding to task for what's happened to the Sixers. At the top of that list, I would hold their 2 highest paid employees, or soon to be highest paid employees, in their 2 superstars. So set Tobias Harris aside for a moment. Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons. Joel's got to mature. Ben Simmons got to mature. Like, listen, I did a whole rant a couple weeks ago about how give me an NBA superstar that hasn't gotten himself in shape, that gotten his body right in defense of Zion. And I was thinking about it yesterday. I'm like, oh, the best counter to that is Joel. Because Joel looks tired by the second quarter of these playoff games, and that's been a concern and a knock with him since he was drinking Shirley Temples by the dozen as a rookie, and people in Philly were like, oh boy, this ain't great. Ben refuses to shoot at a historic level. So those 2 guys, and I know Ben wasn't there for this, got to take ownership. And then Elton Brand, who signed up for, after this season, another 4 years and $148 million of Tobias, and another 3 years and $81 million of Al Horford. Those are disastrous decisions and go very near the top of the list of least tradable contracts in the entire NBA. So, Broussard, I think they were justified in firing Brett Brown, but this is not you mentioned earlier Mark Jackson and Steve Kerr. This is not a situation where you, or Dwayne Casey, who I think is a very good coach, to Nick Nurse, where you fire the coach and next year, boom, this team is fixed. It is far from that. They have much further structural issues, Broussard.
Well, they wouldn't be fixed no matter who the coach is in terms of they're going to win the championship next year, which is what we saw with Golden State and Toronto in the cases you mentioned. However, and I'll give you this, the blame goes to everybody. Joel Embiid has not shown the commitment or leadership of a winner. So you need him to get more committed, get in better shape. And for goodness sake, Joel, stay on the block. All right, even when Ben Simmons was not there, he's floating around on the 3-point line. He's letting Daniel Theis or whoever push him out to 15, 16 feet on his post-ups. Enough of that. So Joel is not blameless. Ben, as you mentioned, forget about hitting the 3-pointer. Just take it. Just take it, Ben. And this is a serious flaw for him. So those guys are not blameless. And you mentioned Elton Brand and the moves for Horford and Tobias Harris. However, and you can kill those moves all you want, but the fact is, when you look at this roster in Philadelphia, what do you see, Nick? Talent. All right, 2 potential superstars who are young, and Tobias Harris as a third option, overpaid perhaps, but still a very good third option. And Al Horford, look, I know he struggled this year. He never fit with Embiid. However, it's the coach's job to get the players to fit together. Whenever you have a lot of talent and you don't maximize that talent, or at least get it to play at a reasonable level to how good it is, it's the coach's fault. Period. The end. So no one's blameless, but Brett Brown is the #1 target because he failed to get those guys to play at their highest level.
Well, then, Wildes, I got a question for you. which is you look around the league right now, there are 3 job openings that all some would argue are premier spots. The Pelicans with Zion, that flexibility, I think an excellent general manager. The Nets with one of the 3 best players in the league and Kyrie Irving. We're yet to see them play together, but we imagine it'll be great. And then the Sixers with, as Broussard mentioned, all that talent. If you're the number 1 coach on the market, how do you look at the Sixers in comparison to the other opening jobs, most notably the Pelicans and the Nets?
Yeah, so I took a shot at this. I tried to make up the ZipRecruiter job posting for the Sixers if they're trying to entice Jay Wright, who I don't think is going to go, or Ty Lue, who seems like he can pick between 3 jobs. And this is how the interview would go. Hey, our decades-long rival just swept us out for the first time in the history of our rivalry. It goes back to, like, Wilt and Bill Russell. We mostly blame the coach for organizational failures. We're pretty much always injured, you know. We're still blaming the coach. Our core only played about 20 games together. That doesn't matter. It's still Brett Brown's fault. Our point guard /4 refuses to shoot the 3. He also just had a loose body removed from his knee, whatever that means. We're not big on the 3 ball at all. We don't have any real shooters. We let one of the best shooters of all time, J.J. Redick, walk so we could bring in now Horford, who doesn't really work. We also brought in Tobias Harris. Doesn't really work. Overpaid for both of them. Our front office is a mess. We don't even know if our GM's going to be fired. And our ownership group, it's a group, talks about making decisions by consensus. So, you know, it's all there for you, or you could just go work with David Griffin and Zion. And I think Ty Lue would be like, you know what? I'll head down to New Orleans, Broussard.
I mean, come on, Wilds, when you put it that way. All right, listen, great news. We got Brandon back. That means Wi-Fi is back. Let me reiterate, our guy Brandon is back. Broussard, thanks. We'll see you in a little bit. We're talking Lakers on the other side. The King taking control. First things first.
Wait, who took his throne?